Hey guys, it's Bree here with Blossom and Branch Farm, and I'm out today in the field doing a little bit of harvest. Now we've had a very unusually cold and wet spring, and so a lot of stuff is behind. We've also been hit by hail, not once but twice. And so I thought I'd kind of give you a tour around and see where some things are. And we are moving our shed today. We are getting ready to do a new shop addition that's gonna be over on this side of the farm. So when we bought the farm, obviously this is a huge strip of concrete. So we are restoring the old garage, which actually used to be on this side of the house. We're gonna demo all of this concrete. And so we have to move this shed, and this shed's moving to the back. We're also moving our cooler. So a lot going on today. So right now we're actually about 3 weeks behind where we normally would be for harvesting snapdragons, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, just because we had such a cold spring. But now they've taken off. I have learned to somewhat succession plant my snapdragons. So you'll see that this patch is ready here, the one that I'm cutting from, but we have other sections that are not quite yet ready to harvest. And I do that on purpose because if I plant them all at the same time, I get literally 400 snapdragons ready at once. So I have learned to succession plant my snapdragons. And usually we want to harvest them before the top half starts to open. So these are maybe a day behind, but they're for an event, so it's not a big deal if they're fully open as much as it is for retail. So for retail work, if we're sending these home in bouquets, we want to make sure they're going to have the longest vase life possible. For events, we want them to look as bloomy and open as possible. And these are nice tall stems, and that's because we do use cutting varieties of snapdragons. We don't just use the normal varieties that you get at the garden center, which can be bedding varieties, which tend to be shorter. These are meant for cutting. This particular variety is called Chantilly, and it's an early bloomer. And even with those long stems, we do cut all the way down to the bottom of the stem, because that way when we get our second flush, our second bloom, we will get long stems on that second bloom. If we cut halfway up the stem, we get branching from here and we get short stems. So I like to cut all the way down to the bottom, which also helps with air circulation in this patch. So here we have a bunch of sweet peas, and sweet peas are actually the non-edible cut flower garden version of peas. So over on this side of the tunnel, we actually have snap peas. Now the snap peas are edible. These are the ones that you get at the grocery store, super tasty. Sweet peas are actually toxic, so we don't eat these ones. Even though they do put off a little seed pod, they're not edible. If you're concerned about the toxicity, just plant them somewhere away from your regular peas so that your family knows they shouldn't be eating them. But sweet peas are one of the most beautiful scents that we grow in the garden. So I love including them in especially bridal bouquets. And this year I'm mostly growing these kind of whites and light blue tones just because we tend to use them only for events. They don't have the longest vase life. Now they do have a longer vase life. You can see here is one that I've cut with the vine. So I do a mix of where I cut the vine with the flowers, and then some where I just cut the bloom itself. And the reason that I do that is because that way I get a mix of longer vase life with the vine and then just ones with the blooms. Now a lot of people get short sweet peas, and we do too. A lot of this has to do with what time of year it is. The longer sweet peas are going to happen in the spring when the temperatures are cooler and when they're getting a lot of moisture. And as the summer goes on, they get shorter and shorter. And we do keep them dead-headed, which helps keep them blooming throughout the summer. Oh, this smell. We've had these coming in for about a month now, so these have been blooming for us since late May. But remember, sweet peas, not edible. Snap peas, edible. So the next thing we have ready to bloom are foxglove, and these are biennial. So foxglove bloom every other year, not every year. Remember, foxglove are toxic too, so always remind your kids not to eat flowers unless you specifically tell them it's okay. We just tell our kids, don't eat any flowers. And now she's sitting in her new home. Looks pretty good. Here we have our last sad little patch of stalk. So most of our stalk has already bloomed. Some of them here are still budding up, but we're gonna go ahead and harvest anything that's looking ready, and then we'll get ready to flip this bed into something else. Roses, of course, are the trickiest ones to harvest because of the thorns. And some of these bushes are still establishing, so we're not gonna pick a ton, and we got hit by some hail last night, which kind of blew a lot of these open. So we're gonna pick the ones that look good. You can see like these ones got pretty weighed down by the rain. All right, here are the roses we just picked. Nice long stems, great for cutting. I kind of do a lot of these blushies and peachies and pinkies. They're pretty popular. I don't think I can really describe how good this smells. So now we have all of our flowers harvested here. We're gonna go pop these into the cooler to condition and chill for at least a few hours before we use them to make bouquets. Come on, baby. There we go. All right, we've taken out all of the flowers because we're getting ready to move our cooler over there. So now we move the shed. So the cooler is gonna go here, which means we have to take everything out. There's the cooler. Hi. Pretty exciting? Yeah. So here's part of today's harvest. The stalk is still wet over here, so we're letting that dry out. So when you don't have a truck, but you have a 25-year-old SUV, you use it like a truck. So onward. We did it. We're done. So we put up all our fabric and there was like an ant nest. It fell all over our hair, which was real fun, but it's so organized in here. I think we need to landscape it next. Yay. It was like it was here all along. Yes. Nailed it. Next up, we had to get ready for a wedding. So we had a bridal bouquet and a bunch of bridesmaids to make for our wedding. So we assembly line all of the bouquet ingredients and then we put everything together. Today we're using garden roses and some of the peonies and a bunch of the stuff that we harvested this morning from the field. Okay, well that was a rushed end of our bouquet making because we had a huge storm move in. We've been getting baseball-sized hail. We had a tornado warning right after we wrapped up making those bouquets, so we weren't able to quite finish, but here is the finished bridal bouquet. So with the things that we harvested this morning, we've got our peonies in here, some stock, we have some of the roses, a little bit of lilac tree, some lilac foliage, some foxglove, and a little chamomile baby in there, and our sweet peas, of course. So I kind of like how this bouquet right now is kind of mimicking the sky with its little bit of bluish in those sweet peas. So I'm going to finish getting the rest of these wrapped up so that we are ready to go for our wedding tomorrow. If you want to learn how to make a bridal bouquet, we do have a video on our channel that shows you how we go about making these. They're really much easier than you would think, and it takes just a little bit of practice to get it down. I hope you enjoyed this video and our little tour along on the farm. Remember that when you buy local flowers, you're supporting an American and local farmer, and typically most flowers here in the US are imported from Ecuador and Colombia. So whenever we can support an American flower grower, we sure appreciate it. All right, guys, remember to like and subscribe because it does help us out here a lot at the farm. See you around here soon.